Welcome to the World of Warcraft Q&A about almost everything panel. Here to answer your questions are J. Allen Brack, Tom Chilton, Ian Hazzikostas, Dave Kosak, Cory Stockton, and Greg Street.
Hello, BlizzCon. One person's name that you didn't hear that we were lucky enough to drag away from other stuff is our art director, Chris Robinson, who's here in the end. He's the main guy, the main architect behind the new character races, which I'm sure you're very excited about. So, welcome. Fire away.
Questions.
I'm Cherub from Khadgar, and my number is 18592. Look for me. Hi. My question is about garrisons. It looks like they're going to be tablet, kind of. Are you thinking about putting it into the WoW Armory app?
That'd be really, really cool. I can't say that we're actively working on it. It's going to be a very complex system to make it work awesome on the PC, and we feel like we have to really devote all of our attention to that to make it as good as it can be. A dream would be to have it on tablet, and I wouldn't rule it out as a possibility someday, but not yet.
Nice robe.
Hi. As an RPer from Earth and Ring, I'm super excited for player housing player housing on steroids in the form of garrisons.
That's right.
I was wondering, right now it said something about a party system, but I was wondering how many people can be in your garrison, and are there any plans for your friends to be able to access your garrison while you're offline?
Probably not while you're offline. We definitely allow, you'll be able to invite your friends to your garrison while you're there. We don't have any mechanic designed for it to happen while you're offline. I'm not really sure what they would do there while you're offline other than maybe, I don't know,
Trash your
pick your
garrison.
Flowers or something.
She's from an RP server, Tom.
Oh, that's true. Well, you can probably imagine. But no, we don't have any plans for that right now. It's an interesting idea. But certainly we do plan to have some cooperative gameplay. You were asking a question about parties, and I'm assuming you meant like the followers, where you would put together some of your followers and get together with some friends to do missions.
No, I was actually wondering how many of your real World of Warcraft friends, guildies, can be in your instanced area.
Oh, like invite a raid, all 40, whatever.
Dear server programmers, we're sorry.
Hi, I was just wondering about the dwarves. There hasn't been a lot of them lately, I guess, in the storyline, and I was wondering if there's anything happening with Magni.
I'm not ready to talk about anything happening with Magni yet. Maybe. We are really focusing on Moira, and I think there's a really interesting dynamic going on right now with Moira and the Dark Irons and the other Council of Three Hammers. We explored a little bit of that in patch 5.3, and Moira sort of stepping up to help the Alliance in a bit way. And we're going to see a few Dark Irons. We're going to see a little bit of that happening in this next expansion as well to kind of continue that story on. So we'll get a little bit of that, a little taste of dwarves. Delicious dwarves.
How you doing, Brunsgott, Badass Warrior? Got a question. In Myth, before you even released it, really, you said, Garage last boss. Do you know what the last boss is in Warlords of Draenor? Or can you tell us, please?
Grommash Hellscream.
What? All right.
What, did you not want to know?
So we can kick both Hellscream's ass.
That's right.
Hell yeah.
You're welcome.
All right. Quick questions. One, there are certain zones like Silverpine and Twilight Highlands where you meet Garrosh and then talk to him, but Garrosh isn't the War Chief anymore, so will they be updated to War Chief Vol'jin? And is the Emerald Dream restricted to Azeroth, or is there an Emerald Dream on Draenor and Argus and other planets?
Two good questions. Emerald Dream is very much kind of an Azeroth sort of creation when the Titans created Azeroth. The other question, wait, what was the first question?
Will zones...
updating the old content. Yeah, it's actually pretty resource intensive. So I think we'll leave the old content as it is. You know, when you're playing the old world, you're really playing Azeroth as it was during the Cataclysm and experiencing those events that happened during the Cataclysm, and then the other expansions move the timeline forward.
I mean, the reality is we keep our existing content there, and it's sort of a timeline that you're playing through story-wise as you level up, and as you're going through, you know, Northrend, obviously, in reality, the Lich King has been vanquished, the Scourge largely defeated, but obviously there's still a present threat, and of course Garrosh is there leading the Horde forces, but it all makes sense. It comes together as you hit max level. We want to keep that intact for people to play through as it always was.
Hi there, I'm Hatsuma from Kel'Thuzad. My question's regarding Duskwood. There's an area called Beggar's Haunt. It's also called Knight's Hollow in the art book. There's a lot of art for it. Was it meant for anything like the Stalden quest line or the Scythe of Elune?
We don't really have any plans to use that area for that. Sometimes when we get on a roll, we create a lot of awesome art. And this guy is on top of it. Sometimes we don't get to use it as much as we should have, but that is a cool area, but we don't really have any other plans with it.
Hello, Root Faith of Galaran. I have a question about pet battles. Is there going to be any major changes made to the pet battle system?
There's a few things that we have in mind that we've been talking about, but in general, we really feel great about the base that we have. What we really see expanding upon with pet battles is the collection aspects. So adding more new pets in Draenor for you to collect and to find, having new trainers that you can battle against. There's a couple ideas for things in the garrisons that we could do too. We've got one building is called the Pet Stable there, and we're thinking about giving you the chance to maybe fight a unique trainer there. Maybe that might be a way that you could finally get epic pet battles from that building too. So there's a couple ideas on the table there that we can do with that.
What is the likelihood of you adding more character customizations, such as mixing hair, dances, facial paint things to them?
I think it's there's a likelihood. We're taking it in stages right now, so we wanted to see after we finish that kind of broad stroke, bringing everything up to the level that we want it to be at. We'll take a look at it and just feel like if there's enough breadth there that we want to add a little bit more to it. I mean, we're always pushing and wanting to do more. It's just a question of cost versus reward, and I think that's something we're going to definitely keep looking at in the future.
Hi, my question is, are we going to see Rathian in the next expansion?
I love Rathian. You guys love Rathian? Yeah. Pretty cool. I think he played a great role in Pandaria, and he helped kind of put the whole story together in Pandaria in a really neat way. He might take a little bit of a break. It doesn't feel right to have him do another legendary quest in the next expansion, so I would expect a cameo, but I wouldn't expect that kind of role again for Rathian.
So he's not the final boss of Warlords?
He's Grommash will ride him into battle.
Hi, I'm Starlene from Static, and I was wondering if there's any plans to make healing less smart heal focused and more target based, more like TBC healing was, especially with raids being 20-man now. Smart heals in their current form are going to be healing a higher percentage of the raid.
Yeah, and I think smart heals are one of those things that we agree have probably gotten out of hand to an extent. I think that as more and more heals have been converted over to be smart, it actually comes at the expense of some of the engaging and interesting healer gameplay at times. where you have a raid that's standing in a healing rain and an efflorescence and a Holyrood Sanctuary, and then there are Ancestral Awakening and Atonement procs going on, and someone takes a really big spike of damage, and the good player is like, oh, that person took a big spike of damage. Let me go cast a Flash Heal or a Flash of Light or whatever. And when you're about halfway through your cast, in the meantime, that healing rain and efflorescence and everything else has ticked, and your heal overheals. And you're like, well, okay, I guess I should have cast more smart heals. So I think we want to keep some place for those, and AoE targeted heals is always tricky. I mean, we have Prayer of Healing as kind of the only remaining party targeted heal in the game. One thing we're exploring is maybe actually making smart heals a little bit less smart while still keeping some of that functionality. So a way this might work would be to actually have most of our AoE smart heals simply prefer people who are injured over those who are not, like the way Chain Heal hops, rather than actively seeking out the most injured and lowest health target. This could make healing feel a lot more like it does on Malkorok, for example, where people with a full green shield are completely ignored by smart heals, but otherwise it doesn't discriminate between someone with a weak shield or a strong shield, and you actually find yourself having to still make those intelligent choices to single target top people off, while smart and AoE heals remain useful.
So that's a yes?
Yes.
That's an Ian yes.
Pretty much.
Ian, she's got your number.
One more
Nailed
quick
it.
thing. Greg, are you going to take away the 25% penalty to Chakra? It's not a bonus.
We've struggled a lot with that kind of design of, I'm going to go into this mode to do one thing and switch into this other mode to do this other thing. I don't know that there's many successful attempts in the game. We still like Chakra as a mechanic. We've been exploring some other things we could do with it. It's also possible we could just pull the whole thing.
Hello, I'm Bubbleheart from Laughing Skull, and my question goes on to 10-man rating. You guys have changed it to 20-man with Mystic rating, and that's not necessarily a problem. And you're saying, oh, there's going to be a problem with this, and we understand that. But is there any solutions that you can give me? Because besides recruiting or going on to merge another guild, what options do I have and what hope do I have? I mean, I have tons of people on my guild alone saying, oh, this is terrible, I might end up quitting. So either recruit or find a new guild. What solutions do I have?
Ultimately, we want to make it easier for people to find others to play the game with who are of a like mind. And things like Connected Realms are helping with that on lower population servers. And part of the point of giving advance notice of this change, I mean, the reality is it's not like you're going to go back from BlizzCon to Siege of Orgrimmar and have to completely change your guild structure overnight. It's something that can happen over time, and with the new expansion and people returning to the game, and the fact that you're still leveling up, gearing up, progressing through Heroic before you get into Mythic, the hope is that there is time for guilds to adapt and fit their rosters in terms of what they will look like then to the new 20-man Mythic structure. Ultimately, it's a change that's being made in the long-term interests of the health of that level of rating overall. One of the things we realized as we had expanded Flexible to cover all the other raid difficulties was Mythic, the highest tier, was the only thing that was left over. And the question was, do we keep this parallel 10 and 25 structure just for the top % of the game's rating population, or do we try to streamline it in a way that's really going to let us better focus our raid design and tuning and content going forward? And while I completely understand and I do sympathize with some of the short-term difficulties that guilds are going to face grappling with this transition, in the long run, we do think it's going to be a better experience for everybody.
Plus, the group finder will find you 10 new best friends.
I'm with Kel'Thuzad US Divinity. I talked to you yesterday, or the day before yesterday, Ian, at the dinner about the Hunter AoE abilities and how we only have targetable AoE abilities. What does Blizzard intend to do about this?
I'm not sure the context of the conversation.
Ultimately it's something for Greg maybe to speak to an extent. I mean, part of the context was specifically, I guess this is volley, and Hunter's missing volley, and the ability to just kind of lay down that blanket AoE kind of Blizzard flame strike style without needing a specific target. I think it's fair to the extent that we create and encounter situations where you want to be able to kind of pre-drop your AoE or pre-plan your AoE before there's a target there. And I mean, historically, that's the sort of thing we've maybe explored with glyphs to modify behavior of abilities, but it's not something that I can necessarily give a definitive answer to, unless maybe Greg wants to jump in.
Yeah, I think overall with the problem with, you're talking about the original volley, there are players who want to do the best damage they can, and obviously having a very simple rotation will help with that. There are players who get bored of just channeling an AE over and over again, which is kind of what volley was like, say, in the the second Naxxramas. So we're trying to give everyone some type of AE rotation that's not just channel one thing over and over again. And with hunters, we wanted to incorporate things like whether it was multi-shot or beast cleave or glaive throw or the level 90 talons to try to do something besides just channel a bar and have arrows fall from the sky, and when you finish, channel another bar.
I'm also from Divinity on US Kel'Thuzad. My main question is, with the addition of these tertiary stats added to gear, how do you plan to keep players from getting too much of the stats, like 20% movement speed increase, because that'll obviously have give guilds an advantage on a high-end level of rating?
The intent is that the tertiary stats are rare enough that you can't go out and farm, say, movement speed. We may not even put it on every slot. Maybe movement speed can only appear on boots and bracers, for example, and then if there's only a 10% chance you'll get that, you'll have to farm for a long time, probably beyond the point at which the progression is even an issue before you can complete that set.
Kind of similar to Warforged, right? It's very difficult to actually try to get a full set of Warforged. I don't think players generally have the expectation that they're going to get that.
And with the addition of these chance drops, are you removing heroic Warforged gear?
No.
I think the thought here is that these are multiple vectors along which items can be different and maybe special. That overall, the odds of you seeing an item that is better in some way, be it with a tertiary stat or a socket or Warforged, are probably going to be higher overall. And it's just going to be more variety and potentially more interesting combinations and ways to interact with your items.
Hi again. This is Verena of the Sentinels of Ravenhold. My question is about the legendary. I've worked on 2 legendaries now. I worked on Dragwrath, got that done. It felt like a huge accomplishment. This one just feels like a raid requirement. Is that something you're going to see again in the future, or?
I think that we definitely want to do a legendary quest line. I don't think that those are exclusive concepts. I think that something we want to get in 6.0 is both a legendary quest line for a type of item, kind of like the cape, while also being able to do the other types of legendaries that are a lot more exclusive to, killing a really hard boss. So in the same way that, right now we have the Garrosh heirloom weapons, those are a little bit more exclusive, almost like the old legendaries worked. They aren't really exactly the same, but more along those lines. And I really think that we can have a balance between both of them.
Hi, I'm Scott. I was wondering if for people that have multiple characters, if they'd be able to enlist their alts as followers for their main character's garrison.
It's not an idea that we've thought about, but it sounds cool. We know that we have to come up with some sort of solution to deal with the fact of the garrisons they're unique per character. They're not an account-wide thing. And so we've got to do something there to help you so that, if you want to make another garrison in your alt, we've got to have like some sort of shortcut or a way to do that. We're not really at that point yet in the design to get there to be able to talk about it. But it sounds like a cool idea. Maybe we could pull in their name, their gear, something like that. Could be awesome.
How you doing? Joe Castle from Pittsburgh. Go Steelers. I had a lore question. I've always found the Titan story very fascinating. It's been pretty front and center, I think, in a lot of the previous expansions, Ulduar and Lich King, and then again in Pandaria. Can you say anything about that? Is that something we might see in the next expansion? Is that something that might maybe become its own expansion as far as developing that storyline a little bit more?
Yeah, the Titans are a really interesting concept, and they've sort of had their fingerprints are all over the universe. The Titans actually visited Draenor, so we might get a little hint of what happened there. They didn't. They kind of helped shape Draenor, and then they pieced out of there pretty early on, so they didn't leave quite a big a mark. So we might see a little bit of that. I don't think this next expansion will have a whole lot of Titan story behind it. But we will always kind of revisit that because ultimately the Titans are kind of the one of the opposites of the Burning Legion, and there's a really interesting symmetry there. So we'll definitely see more Titan stuff eventually in the future.
Hey guys, my question is more about, I love that you're cutting out the crap on all the items like hit expertise. How am I supposed to feel rewarded when I get a drop, but then I have to go back, get a heroic, warforged, gemmed, tertiary stat weapon?
Itemization is one of the best rewards we have in the game, and we really want it to be, you kill the dragon, you get the awesome sword out of the dragon's hoard. We're really not happy with the way the game has gone, where it's just a checklist and okay, I got my glove for this raid, okay, I got my belt for this raid, now let's go on to the next one. The plan with having all these rare affixes and things like that in the gear is to give it a long tail so that maybe you'll get a basic item pretty quickly and be able to function, but then you can still chase the awesome item rather than saying, you know what, I've got everything I need, peace out.
What we're trying to say is that Mr. Robot is not sitting up here on this stage, and he should not have to approve your items.
Hi, I want us to thank you for the green fire. Thank you. But my question is, as a raider in the heroic progression, are we going to be continually be punished for nerfs and buffs for any changes amongst, because everyone being troll, but we just use T-Morph to play another race, it seems kind of unnecessary.
I mean, so there's a couple of questions wrapped into that. I think as far as racial balance goes, I think in terms of the factions and the throughput in terms of pure damage potential from the racials, there's some balancing to be done there. I think beast slaying can stay beast slaying and not be 5%. I think that the various hit and expertise racials that a lot of alliance races have, well, those aren't going to do anything anymore because hit and expertise don't exist. So we'll have to come up with some other passives to replace those, and hopefully, in general, narrow the gap. I mean, our idea is that you should play the race that you want to play for sort of the fiction and the fantasy, or maybe some of the utility. And I think we're generally happier with racials like Goblin Rocket Jump or Worgen Darkflight that offer an active capability versus those where you say, well, okay, this sim's 2.3% better, so I need to be this race.
Hi, I'm Nate from Crimson Illuminati and No More Gone Forever and Warmarist Accord. Love the stuff I've seen with Warlords and really looking forward to it. One thing I like is the exploration of the Draenei story and the lore, which leads me to my question, when can we expect the same treatment for gnomes?
Well, it's hard. We can't win. For years, you guys have been saying, "Where's the Draenei stuff? Where's the Draenei stuff? Where's the Draenei?" Finally, we have some Draenei stuff, and immediately, out come the gnomes.
Besides, what about Chromie? We gave you Chromie.
Yeah, so they took Nomergon in Cataclysm. Hopefully, we can maybe find some opportunity to explore some more gnome stuff a little bit later. But I really can't promise that right away. But now we hear you. Maybe next.
Many of us are big fans of gnomes. It's just a question of getting the right time.
Blood gnomes confirmed.
Hi there, I'm Celeste from MMO Champion.
That's not a server.
No. Seeing as Starlene stole my question about removing the plus heal from Chakra, please, how many healers are you expecting to be running in the new 20-man format?
18.
And what sort of mana game are you looking to emulate from that?
I mean, I think healer composition is always going to vary a little bit, particularly at the very high end where guilds tend to min-max. My assumption would be that right now, where 6 healers is often considered a baseline for a 25-player raid, you'll probably see 5 healers as a baseline, and you'll see 4, maybe 3 in some extreme cutting-edge, heroic, mythic progression kills where you need to drop healers to squeeze out as much DPS as possible. But ultimately, one of the advantages of having a fixed raid size is that we can think about and target and implement mechanics that we often may have had to discard because they wouldn't have scaled down and been adaptable to 10. Splitting your raid up into more groups than 2, for example, or anything that really depends heavily on a single class mechanic like Spell Steal or Enslaved Demon or Blink or what have you. Anything that requires a specific class ability, we can't do because we can't assume that you have that class present in a 10-player raid. But in a 20-player Mythic mode that's really crafted for that specific size, there are a lot more possibilities.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Gong Yu from Warcraft Accord. I like the idea of the events being allowed in Draenor to make it feel more alive. So what I'm wondering is that idea going to be looked into for older content, not necessarily rehashing anything like Cataclysm, but to make those older places feel more alive so that anyone leveling again or any new players could go around and say, hey, look, there is a barn on fire or something, and take a look, see if they can help.
We definitely love dynamic content, and it would be awesome to be able to incorporate that in the old world. But we also have to kind of juggle our resources, and we really want to concentrate going forward on the new stuff we're creating. So not in the immediate future. We're not really planning to do that. We definitely plan to really keep experimenting with it in Draenor, though, and really try and find the right balance that makes the world feel alive all around you. And I think that's going to be really compelling.
Any hour we spend on the old stuff is an hour longer it takes us to get to you the new stuff.
I'm a Archlight of Mugfell. I'm sorry, a Hydral. I just have a novelty question. I play a mage. Is it possible we can change the color of our evocation? Right now you can do it with different buffs, but maybe if we can include a glyph or something?
I couldn't hear the question. I'm very sorry.
The evocation is usually blue, but you can change it with different buffs or novelty buffs. Can you possibly see about changing it with a glyph? More customizable, more unique?
I think no specific plans along those lines, but it's the kind of thing that we've done in other cases in glyphs, and certainly a cool idea for us to explore as we add new glyphs to customize, custom spells cosmetically like that in the future.
Hi, are bonus rolls continuing in 6.0?
Yes.
Yes, that is the plan. We don't know exactly what you're going to do to get the bonus rolls. We're still trying to figure that out. But we generally like the idea that you have some control over saying, oh, I want an extra shot at loot on this boss.
As a follow-up, how does the bonus roll actually work now? Like if I roll 3 times an SOO and I don't get loot, there's supposed to be protection. But if I roll in TOT and get a bonus, does it reset it in SOO?
We have a guy in an office, and every time you try to bonus roll, he has a button and he pushes yes or no. And he just pushes no pretty much all the time. He has like a drinking bird set up.
Best job ever.
Sometimes he goes to take a break. It's all about timing. No, honestly, yeah, I mean, we have a streak-breaking system in place. In general, we don't want to delve too much into the details of it because the reality is it's supposed to kind of work behind the scenes. The second you know all the details, you'll again think about gaming it. But don't worry about wasting your chance on different difficulties or different zones like that. If you win something in LFR, it's not hurting your chance at your heroic bonus roll. At the end of the day, we just wanted to make sure that if you see somebody who posts, like, I used 15 bonus rolls in a row on this thing and I didn't win a single item, they're actually officially lying. I know you still see those posts on the forum. They're lying, trust me.
Exaggerating.
Lying.
Hi, I was just wondering if pet battles are ever going to be going on to mobile devices?
You know, that's actually something that we've talked about a bunch. Is something we've actually put some effort into. The question is, what we were looking into doing was trying to figure out a way to let PvP pet battles work on a mobile device. But what we found is that we really wanted the collection aspect of the game to work on mobile too, to have a way to be able to collect more pets, to play in the actual kind of PvE side of it. And I think that's the part where we kind of got hung up and felt like we have some ideas, but we haven't had time to really execute on those ideas and figure out the best way that we could do that on mobile. But it's certainly a desire, something that we would love to do.
Half-Life 3 confirmed.
Have you ever thought about adding servers for previous expansions as they were then?
No. And by the way, you don't want to do that either. You think you do, but you don't. Remember when you had to like spam cities and say, need a tank, need a tank, need a tank during the Burning Crusade days? You don't remember that because now you just push a button that says go to the dungeon. You don't want to do that. Remember that one bug that really pissed you off that we fixed like 2 years ago? Still there in the past.
Hi, I'm Tamerlane from Elias on Nathurism. I have a lore question. What's with celestial dragons? They're not celestials, they're not dragons. They show up in Throne, Aldior, and Mogashan vaults, and like, what's going on there?
That is an excellent question. What are celestial dragons? I think the Titans were involved, and they were doing something.
We need to get you a red shirt.
I don't think we have any like official lore, official story about the celestial dragons. They're tools that the Titans were using, and honestly, primarily, they just look really bitchin'. Is kind of the main reason they're there.
Good job, Chris.
Thank you.
We have some celestial BSers up here.
Alice from Ice Count, Guild Peons No More. My question is, with reforging gone, what will replace the vendor on the Yak?
You know that question came up almost immediately after that presentation.
We just talked about this.
Yeah. One idea was transmog.
Wait, stop. Hold on. So, were you guys designing at BlizzCon? Please don't do that.
We were pretty sober.
You say that now.
For a short period.
It was over lunch, like 2 hours ago, really.
What do you want on the Yak?
You know what you sound like?
Bank access.
No way, dude.
I think they said a flask vendor.
Vanilla servers on the Yak? Was that what it?
That's what I heard. Confirmed.
Hey guys, the Disaster for Skull Crusher. My question was about the Horde and Lion crests. The lion's crest is a lion, but there are no lions in the Eastern Kingdoms whatsoever. So where did they come up with that?
Well, Uther Pendragon's crest had dragons, and there were none of those in England, were there?
Burn.
Now Tom needs the red shirt.
Yeah, sorry. The other thing was about the Horde crest. Is it a Naru?
I have no idea.
We'd have to ask Chris.
We need like a bucket of red shirts just to sit right there. You can hand them out to everybody
I
who's
would
coming.
love a red shirt or a character, and wow, either would make me happy.
Hey guys, this is Houndstooth from Acris. And I was wondering, with tertiary and secondary stats, are we going to see a morph of that when we spec change? Or am I going to have to collect multiple pieces of gear that have avoidance or cleave if I like to play multiple roles?
The idea is just that the primary stat changes, strength, agility, intellect, and that the secondary and tertiary stats would all stay the same. That's part of the long tail there, that if you really like haste, you can still go and chase haste gear, but you could still function if you can't get that kind of gear.
I do think it's very important that we realize that we're still going to be experimenting with this stuff and testing it out, right? It's got a long way to go before we really finalize what all these tertiary stats are and exactly how they'll work and what percentage chance there are to have these things. So there are a lot of the details will probably morph some before it actually goes live, but I think it's a really legit concern.
Hey, I was wondering, with Warlords of Draenor kind of bringing up the past again, would you ever maybe possibly consider the old Warcraft games being available to play again on a modern computer, please?
So we actually have a guy on our team, actually several guys on our team, who are actually working on a side project to do something like that in some form or fashion. You know, we're fans of Warcraft 1, Warcraft 2, Warcraft 3, and we'd love to replay those games for sure. Thanks.
So I was wondering about the garrisons. Are they going to be in predetermined locations throughout the zones? And in one of the slides, I noticed the dance studio.
What do you mean?
What? I'm not sure what you're talking about.
I saw it in the medium buildings there.
I don't think that's accurate.
Is that an announced feature? I don't know. It's weird.
Surely we would never troll our player base like that.
We would never do that.
It's ridiculous to even suggest such a thing.
Who would do that? But in regards to your first question, yes, the garrisons are in a predetermined location in the zone. And it'll be like that for all the different zones that has a garrison. So you can choose to, if you have it like in Shadow Moon Valley, you would be in that spot. If you choose to like maybe have it in Gorgrond, there's a predetermined spot there. And then within the garrison, you can customize it by placing the buildings wherever you want within that kind of predetermined area. But by having it be in a predetermined area like that, we can make it look super awesome. Like we've got them built right into the zones with waterfalls and lakes, and all the unique features of the zones themselves will be built into that garrison. So each one has a really unique kind of like vibe and feel to it.
I think if we allowed complete freedom, most players would just like, I'm going to put it right in front of the entrance to Blackrock Foundry. Bleh.
Hi, Malazar of the Shadow Wolves of Smolderthorn. I had a gameplay mechanic question. So when the Dark Portal turns red, how do you get as a max level character in Draenor to Old Outworld or Outland if you want to do old lore or get old achievements?
You're trapped there forever. If you're in Outland, if you're max level and you're in Outland, you want to get to Outland, we're still talking about that. We've actually talked about one way to do that actually might be through the Caverns of Time. We may also just make it so that we're also talking about how to handle it for non-max level characters that are still, in their level 60s or whatever. What do they do when they want to get there? The reason we say that is because if you think about the current timeline, it's kind of broken. You go through the Cataclysm timelines from 1 to 60, and then you kind of go back in time to the Outland timeline through Northrend, and then you go forward in time to Cataclysm again. You kind of jump around. So if you think about it, you could actually argue that Outland is currently back in time. So that would be one way to approach it, but we're still trying to resolve how to do that. But we will give you a way to go there.
Hi guys, Boosh Baguette from Full Spectrum Guild. I just want to thank you for your decades of awesome work. I really appreciate it. So I'm in a 10-man guild that does heroic content on 2 nights a week, and I'm in for some big changes. So my concern is when we go to Mystic with 20, and ideally we're going to have 25 in a guild, and 20 get to raid, 5 people are going to get subbed, but if your lockout is on loot base, you're going to run it twice, so those 5 you subbed get a chance for loot. And then with the new heroic, you're going to want to do that for tier, for trinkets, things like that. I'm concerned that we're going to have to do 48 bosses every single week to be really competitive.
Okay, so that's something that I should probably clarify from what was said in the last panel. The Mythic raid lockouts is pretty much going to work just like Heroic does today. There's nothing changing about that. It's very traditional in that regard. That is boss-based, static raid ID. You can't hop one mythic raid to another. Really nothing is changing there. So you definitely will not be running sort of parallel main alt raids through mythic content. And as far as other difficulties, I think the thought is that it'll work pretty much like it does today, where coming out of a prior tier, you'll probably go into whatever you were doing and one tier below. That is to say, heroic guilds coming out of Throne of Thunder with full Throne of Thunder heroic gear did normal Siege of Orgrimmar and then went into heroic Siege of Orgrimmar. They didn't really have much, if anything, to get out of Flex Siege of Orgrimmar, and we didn't really see them doing it all that much. We certainly are sensitive to players' desire to not find themselves running the same things over and over again multiple times per week, unless they're doing it just to help out their friends. I think it's very different when it feels like part of your necessary progression, like way back in the Argent tournament days. So that's something we're sensitive to, and we will try to minimize wherever possible.
Hi, I'm Mooney from Aloon and the Sentinels RP server. In Dawn of the Aspects, we saw a great variety of proto-drakes and an immense variety of the different abilities that they had. I was wondering if we could get a bit of a definitive answer of the different dragonflights in their current form and their breath abilities.
I really don't have time to go into detail on that on the panel, but it is something we talked about. Honestly, there's so many different sort of forms of dragons because that makes for great gameplay for us. It's nice to have a variety of draconic types of creatures to fight. Some of the details we haven't really ironed out as to whether they evolve into these other forms or how exactly it works. So that's a really good question. And I believe we have a printed book coming out that'll go into a little more detail about that, but I'm not positive about that. It's part of our sort of atlas kind of thing. So yeah, I don't really have an answer for that right here, but it's something we've been talking about.
Hi, my name is Tim Marble. I came out here from Maine, and my question is for Mr. Greg Street. On behalf of the entire hunter community, I was gonna ask, where the hell is Eyes of the Beast? That was the coolest ability in the game, and it disappeared in Cataclysm. Who doesn't want to control their pet and make them run around?
So, I would like to apologize for what happened to Eyes of the Beast. We had very good intentions of trying to prune abilities from classes, but made a mistake in that some of the things we proved weren't really the abilities that were confusing players. They don't take action bar space. You're not throwing down Eyes of the Beast as part of your single target rotation unless you're a really kind of weird hunter. So we took it out, and then there was a bug, and the programmers came to us and said, what are the chances you're gonna keep this ability? And we're like, I don't know, we don't think so. And they clipped off that part of the code. So it's not like we can just stick the ability back in and it's back again. It would be a non-trivial amount of work for our engineers to add that back in, which would come at the expense of some other cool ability we'd like to add. If there's a way we can figure out to do it, we know there's a lot of requests from the hunter community to have it back, so it's on our radar. I just don't have a great solution yet. Great question.
Hi. Earlier today, it was mentioned that in Warlords of Draenor, features like normal and heroic mode rating will be available cross-realm. That being said, why would you want to pay to realm transfer anymore?
So we want to make it easier for you to play with your friends. You know, we still believe in realm locality. We still believe in people having a kind of a home that is kind of called their own. But we still want to lower the barrier so that you can actually play with your friends. If you don't want a realm transfer, then that's okay.
There's still a lot of attraction to being in the same guild as your friends and sharing guild chat. So that's one of the cool things about being on the same realm is just being in the same guild.
What's up? So the Horde took a pretty big hit lore-wise. I was wondering, are you gonna even them out? I mean, the Alliance is kind of crazy, super strong. So what can the Horde do to get back to that level? You know, maybe absorb some of the Iron Horde after we're done with them?
They could faction change to Alliance.
That sounds like a good thing to be on the back of the yak now. Good faction change to a lion.
Way to rile them up. So the Horde is really going to be able to go back and really redefine itself and really look at itself and what it values. And I think the Horde is going to come away from this little adventure a lot stronger and a lot more with a stronger core than ever before. And I think we're going to see that happen over the course of Draenor.
Hi, I'm Palthus from Mal'Ganis. Right now, there are 7 times as many guilds that have killed Garrosh on 10 man as opposed to 25. Behind every one of those guilds is a unique culture, leadership, and style. By going to a 20-man raid, you're completely changing that. And what are you gonna do to provide content for people that want to raid hardcore as a 10-man, as a small group?
I mean, this is something that we've addressed. The reality is that moving forward, we have to make the decision. Do we want to support multiple different difficulties separately, only at this highest level, or do we want to streamline the system going forward? And our answer is that we have settled on 20-player content. And I completely understand that it is a difficult challenge and it's going to be a difficult adjustment to make, and that many people may be unable to make that adjustment, and that is unfortunate. But there is awesome content waiting for you at the end of the tunnel, and we ask that you bear with us and come with us on that trip, because we think it's going to be awesome when we get there. But I do apologize.
You could also get really slow computers and just play heroic.
Hi, my name is John. I play on Storm Reaver for the Alliance. I am an original WoW player. Been playing since 2005 from Firetree. The PvP aspect for World PvP has gone down. It feels like it has, at least. You have servers that are massively highly populated in Alliance or in Horde, and there's no even. I understand you're doing the sandbox, but is there something for the World PvP aspect?
To be honest, I don't know that that's really, we've never really had that since back in the South Shore Terran Mill days. And honestly, the reason we had that was because there were no battlegrounds, right? There was no other alternative. What we did is we put in the honor system, which gave you a motivation to kill other players, and there was nowhere else to do it. So World PvP happened. I don't really know that that's something that we can or will be able to recapture. Certainly not when the realms themselves are really heavily imbalanced. I don't think anybody wants to be forcibly moved off of their realm or anything like that. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to try to focus on the World PvP zone that we're creating and make it a really fun place to go when you just want to go and have some kind of random PvP action, the big PvP sandbox. I feel like that's something that we can make cool and deliver on, but I don't think that we can really get that fantasy of the South Shore Terran Mill kind of thing back.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Bayan from Wormrest Accord, and I'd like to ask if you guys were going to make any new hairstyles with the model changes.
Yeah, we actually have like a backlog of hairstyles that we haven't yet put in, so we already have them. I think it's just a matter of like finding the right way at this point to put them in. So, yeah, we have some of that stuff for you.
Well, I was a little concerned just because there wasn't a lot with the ones that you showed up on the panel yesterday, so I was wondering if there was any more than that.
Oh, is that all that we've done? Yeah. No, everything that you've seen so far is gonna be, like every single hairstyle is gonna be redone, so. It's not just the stuff we showed. We just showed everything that we had done, but at this point, but we're going to continue to work on it. So.
Okay, thank you.
Somebody ask about quivers and stuff, please. An answer for you this year.
Thundersong, proud orc shaman of Sisters of Elune. The garrison's kind of satisfied about the secondary production profession, having the NPCs and building the workshops. However, what are the limits of that? I find a blacksmith. I build a blacksmith shop. Can he make the epic weapons?
Not actually sure yet.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. What we're looking at right now, we're planning to let you be able to find recipes through the missions. So like you put a blacksmith to work at the shop, you could send him on specific blacksmithing missions to pull back recipes. I don't think we've actually finalized which recipes you're going to be able to get. I mean, we could let you build epic blacksmithing items if we wanted to. I think it's just a matter of trying to balance that out with someone who actually is a blacksmith and making sure that it still feels valuable to be a blacksmith even outside of your garrison.
Thank you.
Hey guys. So I've been really impressed by seeing how transmog is going to work in Diablo, where you get the item, you've unlocked its appearance across all of your characters, and you don't have to keep it in the bank anymore. Any chance we could get that into WoW?
Yeah, it's something we definitely like to do. There's quite a bit of time and effort that we have to put into it. We have a kind of an idea for a collection system and how that would work. I don't think it's something that we'll be able to finish by the time Warlords of Draenor comes out, but it is on our minds.
We almost showed it in the presentation, but we knew that would then turn into a promise that we were scared to break, but it's pretty awesome.
Nathaniel from Cenarian Circle. And my question is about instances, particularly heroics. So for Firelands and Wrath of the Lich King, when the endgame content came out, we had a lot of really cool heroics that came with it in addition to the ones we had before. In Pandaria, we didn't really see that. It's kind of a gap. In Warlords of Draenor, are you going to bring back that system? It's really weird to hear myself talk.
We would like to, yes. I think that we need to do that, though, while being mindful of managing some of the challenges that introducing new 5-player content mid-expansion can create. I think that when we brought back Zulaman and Zul'Gurub, for example, that was awesome. It was new content to do, but actually it removed a lot of the reason to do the Cataclysm launch dungeons. And so whereas before you had 9 unique and varied dungeons to run, now you were suddenly left with 2 that you ran over and over and over and over again. And ultimately, no matter how awesome the dungeon is, if we basically replaced a broad tier with having to chain run the same couple of dungeons over and over again, that's not going to be ideal. We have some ideas that we're discussing, maybe scaling up the difficulty of the launch dungeons to kind of match the new ones that we release while keeping them all relevant, but just expanding the pool of available dungeons. That could be one way to do it. But we do want to continue to advance our story and give people who really like 5-player content, which includes all of us up here, more stuff to do over the course of the expansion.
Thank you.
Sinblade from Halmarouche and from Sargeras as well. I've been playing every game Blizzard has put out since Lost Vikings, and I absolutely love the Warcraft lore. And I was wondering, going back to all this history, if we're going to be seeing Alaria Windrunner and Turalian again.
They're not on Draenor at this time, so you're not going to see them here, but we definitely have plans for them. We definitely do. You will see them again.
Final boss confirmed.
On the yak.
Hi, my name is Lisa. I play on Alliance on Stormrage and Horde on Killjaden. I was wondering when you guys plan on removing the cap for Real ID and BattleNet?
You're saying you have hundreds of friends?
Yeah, I'm a big supporter of the pug community, and I'm always getting add-on Real ID to join their raids or help out their guild. And I always have to find someone who hasn't played in a month and delete them. And you guys have been really pushing us to make friends, so that would be really awesome. And as a suggestion, if the WoW Armory app had a way to contact those friends so we could have met up with them at BlizzCon.
That's a good suggestion.
Okay, we are out of time. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, fans.
Thanks,
everyone.
Thank you, BlizzCon. We love you.